At my son's birthday dinner, I found my seat outside, right next to the trash cans. My daughter-in-law smiled with contempt and said, "I thought you would be more comfortable away from the main table." I remained silent, took my gift, and walked out without a word. Minutes later, she turned pale and screamed, "There are moments in life when the air grows heavy, where every second stretches into an eternity, and where you understand, with brutal clarity, that your own son no longer recognizes you as his mother." That moment arrived for me on a Saturday afternoon, under a clear sky that contrasted sharply with the storm about to break in my chest. My name is Stella. I am 67 years old, my hands rough from working so much, and a back that is stooped from carrying not only sacks of ingredients, but also the burden of raising a son alone after life snatched away my husband. That Saturday was the 38th birthday of Robert, my only son, the man for whom I sacrificed every single penny, every hour of sleep, every personal dream I ever had. The party was being held in an elegant garden in northern New York City. 60 guests, servers with white gloves, imported flowers decorating every corner. I arrived with my gift wrapped with my own hands, craft paper in a terracotta color that I had bought at the market, tied with a jute ribbon. Nothing fancy, but made with the heart. Victoria greeted me at the entrance, my daughter-in-law, 32 years old, perfectly straightened brown hair, dressed in an ivory-colored pantsuit that screamed money, an impeccable smile, and eyes as cold as ice. "Mother-in-law, how good of you to arrive," she said with that syrupy voice she had perfected to fool everyone but me. Come in, we have everything organized now." I walked behind her, nodding to some guests I did not know. Business people, Robert's colleagues, people who were drinking wine worth $300 a glass while I was still having instant coffee in the mornings. Then, Victoria stopped. Not at the main table where Robert was laughing with his friends. Not at the tables decorated with white floral centerpieces. She stopped next to the back door of the garden where the trash cans were covered with a tarp. "You will be more comfortable sitting here," she said, looking me directly in the eyes, with that smile that no longer tried to hide the venom. "I thought you would be more comfortable away from the main table, you know, with all those important people. We do not want you to feel out of place." The air left my lungs. 60 guests were laughing and toasting less than 30 feet away. My son, the boy I breastfed for 2 years because I did not have money for formula, was right there, celebrating his life, and his wife had just placed me next to the garbage. I did not answer. I did not scream. I did not cry. I simply pressed my gift against my chest, turned around, and walked toward the exit with my head held high. Each step hurt more than the last. I heard murmurs behind my back. Someone asked, "Is that not Robert's mother?" I did not look back, but just before crossing the wrought iron gate, I heard something that made me stop. A scream, high-pitched, full of panic. It was Victoria's voice, and she was screaming my name. If this story has shaken you from the first line, do not leave. Subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will change everything you thought you knew about respect, dignity, and the price some pay for underestimating a mother. Before I tell you what was in that gift that made Victoria turn pale, you need to understand who I really am, because she made the mistake of believing she knew my story. She thought I was just an old jam seller, a provincial mother-in-law with no education or ambition. She was wrong about everything. My full name is Stella Ramirez, widow of Ortega. I was born in a small town in the Carolinas, where I learned to make preserves by watching my grandmother work in a simple, modest kitchen. At 25 years old, I married James, a good man who worked in construction. We moved to New York City looking for a better future. For 10 years, we were happy in our modesty. We lived in a house inherited from my mother in Queens, nothing luxurious, but it was ours. James left before dawn for the construction sites. I took care of Robert, our only son, the gift that arrived when we had almost lost hope of becoming parents. Robert was only 7 years old when everything collapsed. A Tuesday in October. I remember I had prepared some chicken pot pie for dinner. The phone rang at 3 in the afternoon. A professional, distant, male voice. "Mrs. Ortega, we regret to inform you that there was an accident at the site. Your husband—" He did not finish the sentence. He did not have to. James died because of an unsecured scaffolding. 35 years old, a whole life ahead of him, and he was lying on the concrete while his coworkers screamed for help. The construction company offered us $50,000 as compensation. $50,000 for a life, for my son's father, for my partner. I rejected it. I hired a lawyer with the savings we had. They gave us $120,000 after 6 months of fighting. With that, I paid for the funeral, the debts James had unintentionally left behind, and I had $30,000 left. $30,000 to raise a 7-year-old boy in a city that is unforgiving. That night after the burial, I sat in the empty kitchen. Robert was asleep in his room, exhausted from crying so much. I had 2 options, to break down or to get up. I chose to get up. I remembered my grandmother's hands kneading, cooking, creating. I remembered the taste of her blueberry preserves, her pickled vegetables, her artisanal sauces, and I thought, this is what I know how to do. This is what will save me. I bought 50 glass jars, 20 pounds of fruit and sugar. I spent 3 days cooking non-stop. My first products were strawberry jam with spicy peppers and cranberry jelly. I sold them outside schools, at farmers markets, knocking on doors. I earned $200 daily, sometimes less, but I did not give up. I worked 18 hours every day. I woke up at 4 in the morning to cook, took Robert to school, went out to sell, returned to cook more, helped my son with his homework, put him to bed, and kept jarring until midnight. My hands were covered in burns. My back began to hurt permanently, but every dollar I earned was one more step forward. Robert grew up seeing that, seeing me fight against exhaustion, against bills that were not enough, against suppliers who took advantage of a single widow. When he turned 12, he told me, "Mom, when I grow up, I am going to buy you a huge house so you can rest." I hugged him, crying. "I do not need a huge house, my love. I just need you to be a good man." I enrolled him in a private school. It cost me $3,000 a month that I did not have, so I worked twice as hard. He never knew that many nights I only ate saltine crackers for dinner so that he could have protein on his plate. When he got to high school, my preserves were already known in several markets. I had developed unique recipes: spiced apple butter, peanut salsa with chipotle, hickory smoked barbecue sauce with my special touch. People started placing orders with me. By the time Robert entered college, I already had a small rented shop. I had invested every dollar I earned into growing the business. I never spent money on new clothes for myself. I never went to the movies. I never bought myself a luxury item. Everything was for him. College cost him $485,000 over 5 years. Systems engineering. I paid every tuition bill in full, on time, without a single delay. Robert graduated with honors. I cried at the ceremony wearing the same dress I had worn at my wedding, mended 3 times. He got a job at a technology company, good salary, promising future. He hugged me the day he signed his contract and told me, "This is for you, Mom. Everything I am is thanks to you." I thought I had done it. I thought the sacrifice had been worth it. I did not know that 4 years later, a woman with a perfect smile would arrive to destroy everything we had built together. I did not know that my own son would leave me next to the trash cans on his birthday. But that afternoon, walking toward my car with the gifts still in my hands, something inside me broke. And when something breaks in a woman who has survived so much, she can become dangerous. Because I was not the helpless old woman Victoria thought she knew. I was a warrior who had fought 30 years to give her son everything. And warriors do not surrender. They reorganize. Robert met Victoria 4 years ago at a business conference in Chicago. He was 34, she was 28. When he told me about her for the first time, his voice sounded different, excited, almost childlike. "Mom, I met someone special. She is smart. She works in digital marketing. She comes from a good family. I think she is the one." I wanted him to be happy. After everything we had been through together, he deserved to find love. So when he told me he wanted to introduce her to me, I prepared a full Thanksgiving dinner from scratch. 3 days of work. I bought fresh flowers for the table. I cleaned the house until every corner shined. Victoria arrived one Sunday at noon. I remember her perfectly. She was wearing a tight emerald green dress, stiletto heels, a designer bag that cost more than my monthly rent. Her perfume filled the living room as soon as she crossed the threshold. Expensive, sweet, overwhelming perfume. She extended her hand without coming closer to greet me with a kiss, as is our custom. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Stella. Robert has told me so much about you." Her smile was perfect, white as teeth, lips precisely lined, but her eyes ran over me from head to toe in 2 seconds, evaluating, cataloging, discarding. I saw how she noticed my rough hands, my short, unpolished nails, my simple cotton blouse that I had bought at the discount store, my comfortable plastic shoes, and I saw the verdict in her gaze. She is not my level, but she smiled. God, how she smiled. During the meal, she was charming. She praised the food, asked about my business. She listened attentively when I told her how I had started. Robert looked at her enchanted, as if he had found a treasure. "Your mother is a warrior," she told him, taking his hand across the table. "A true inspiration." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that this elegant, educated woman from a good family really admired my story. I wanted to believe that her interest was genuine. But women who have suffered develop an instinct, an internal alarm that detects danger, even if it comes wrapped in silk and French perfume. That alarm sounded from the very first moment. The following months were a careful courtship. Victoria visited often, always impeccable, always kind. She brought me gifts, expensive hand creams that I never used, silk scarves that I kept in their box because I was afraid to soil them. "It is just that you deserve to treat yourself, mother-in-law," she would say in that syrupy voice. "You have worked so hard, mother-in-law." That is how she started calling me, as if it were a loving nickname. But the way she pronounced it, there was something there, something diminutive, something that made me feel small. A year later, Robert called me excitedly. "Mom, I proposed to her. She said yes, we are getting married." My heart sank, not with joy, but with fear. "Are you sure, son? You have only been together a year." "Mom, she is the woman of my life. I have never been more certain of anything." The wedding was big, too big. Victoria insisted on a luxury ballroom in Manhattan, 200 guests, a live orchestra, a 3-course menu. "It is our special day," she explained, while I looked at the budgets with a churning stomach. The total cost, $520,000. Victoria's family could afford it. Her father owned a chain of hardware stores. Her mother, a cold woman who looked at me exactly the same way her daughter did the first time we met, wore jewelry that was worth more than my house. But Robert wanted to contribute his part. "It is my wedding too, Mom. I want to feel like I paid for it." He did not have enough saved. He confessed it to me one night, embarrassed. "How much do you need?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. $180,000. I know it is a lot, but I swear I will pay you back. It is a loan, Mom, a loan." I had $200,000 saved. It was my emergency cushion, my security, the result of 5 years of saving every extra dollar. I gave him the $180,000. "Do not pay me back, son. It is my wedding gift. Your happiness is all that matters." Robert hugged me, crying, "You are the best mother in the world. I do not know what I would do without you." Victoria thanked me with a kiss on the cheek that did not touch my skin. "How generous, mother-in-law. Robert is lucky to have you." The wedding was spectacular. I attended in a borrowed dress from a neighbor, sitting at a table in the back with my distant cousins and some friends from the neighborhood. The Delgado's table, Victoria's family, was up front, close to the newlyweds. During the party, one of Victoria's aunts came over to greet me. "So you are Robert's mother. What a nice boy. And so humble, right? With such simple origins." She smiled, but there was no kindness in that smile. That night, I understood something. To Victoria's family, I was not the mother-in-law. I was the uncomfortable reminder that Robert came from humble beginnings. I was the stain on their perfectly polished lineage. After the wedding, things changed. Robert started visiting me less. "It is just that Victoria has so many social activities, Mom. You know, dinners with her friends, work events." When they came together, Victoria started with the comments, small, venomous, wrapped in laughter. "Oh, mother-in-law, do you always eat with your hands like that? Well, in my house, we were taught to use silverware, even for eating pizza. Laughter. How interesting your way of speaking is. Your accent is noticeable. So authentic, so provincial. Laughter. Robert, honey, you should convince your mother to dress up a little more. I mean, in case she ever wants to come to one of our gatherings. Laughter. Robert did not say anything. He just smiled uncomfortably and changed the subject. I clenched my fists under the table and kept eating in silence. 2 years after the marriage, Victoria convinced Robert of something. Sweetheart, your mother lives in that antique house. Do not you think we should help her modernize it? I mean, if we ever want to bring our friends over, it has to look presentable. Robert came to my house alone one afternoon. Mom, Victoria is right. This house needs renovation. Let me help you. Can we change the living room, remodel the kitchen, paint everything? I do not have the money for that, son. I will lend it to you. $220,000. I know a good and inexpensive architect. $220,000. $40,000 more than I had given him for the wedding. I accepted, because I thought it was his way of giving me back what I had given him, because I wanted to believe that my comfort still mattered to him, because I still did not understand that Victoria was not beautifying my house. She was erasing my history, and that was only the beginning of what I was about to lose. The remodeling began on a Monday in March. 3 workers arrived at 7 in the morning with cans of paint, tools, and blueprints I had never seen. Victoria accompanied them. Good morning, mother-in-law. I came to personally supervise. I want to make sure everything is perfect for you. Perfect for me. Those were her words. The first thing they did was empty the living room. The workers took out every piece of furniture, every ornament, every photograph. I watched from the kitchen with a knot in my throat that grew with every piece that disappeared. Victoria, where are they taking my things? To a temporary storage unit, mother-in-law. Do not worry. When the work is finished, we will bring back whatever is worth keeping. Whatever is worth keeping. The sofa where James and I sat every night to watch television. It disappeared. It was too worn out, mother-in-law. We bought you a new modern one. The carved wooden rocking chair that had belonged to my grandmother. It disappeared. Those antique things collect dust. They are not hygienic. The mahogany bookcase where I kept Robert's school notebooks, his childhood drawings, his first report cards. It disappeared. We need space for a minimalist unit. Those things can be stored in boxes. But the worst came later. One afternoon, I returned from the market and found Victoria in my bedroom. She had my grandmother's embroidered shawl in her hands, wine-colored with hand-stitched yellow flowers. My grandmother had worn it for 50 years. She gave it to me on her deathbed. So you will remember me, my little one. So you will know where you come from. Victoria looked at it with a grimace of disgust. What are you doing with that? I asked her, trying to keep calm. Oh, mother-in-law, I was organizing your closet. There are so many old things in here. This old rag is already frayed. I am going to donate it to a shelter. Surely someone needs it more than you. That rag is from my grandmother. Precisely. It has served its purpose. Memories are in the heart, not in things. She smiled at me. You, who are so detached, must understand that. She snatched it from my hands before I could react. Victoria, please. Mother-in-law, trust me. This is for your own good. You need to renew yourself, to let go of the past. My grandmother's shawl ended up in a black trash bag along with other old things. I never saw it again. 2 weeks later, it was the photograph's turn. I had an entire wall dedicated to memories. Framed photos of my wedding to James, of Robert as a baby, his first steps, his graduation, the 3 of us in Florida, the only family trip we could afford. Victoria took them all down. These photos are faded, mother-in-law, and these frames are so outdated. We are going to put up modern pictures, abstract art, much more elegant. But they are my memories. You can scan them and save them digitally. That way, they do not take up space. The photo of my wedding to James, where he looked at me as if I were the most valuable thing in the world, went into a box in the basement, along with all the others. In their place, Victoria hung 3 minimalist paintings, gray lines on a white background, without a soul, without a story. See the difference? Now this looks like a magazine home. My house no longer felt like mine, but the hardest blow came one afternoon in April. I was in the kitchen preparing apple butter when I heard Victoria talking on the phone in the living room. Her voice sounded different, without the false sweetness. Hard, real. "Yes, Mom, we are almost done. This house will be worth double when we sell it." No, she does not suspect anything. She thinks we are helping her. Robert does what I tell him. He is so in love that he does not even question it. I figure in 2 years we will convince her to move to a retirement home. Something discreet, not too expensive. I froze with the spoon in my hand. The house is still in her name, but I am working on that. Robert is an only child, so it will eventually be ours. In the meantime, we are getting rid of all that sentimental trash. It is unbelievable how much junk poor people accumulate. She hung up. I took a deep breath. I kept stirring the apple butter as if I had heard nothing. When she came out of the living room, I smiled at her. "Everything all right, honey?" "Everything perfect, mother-in-law. Do you need help with that?" "No, thank you. I am almost done." That night, alone in my bedroom that I no longer recognized, I took out a floral-covered notebook that I kept at the bottom of my drawer. It was old, with yellowed pages. I had used it years ago to write down recipes. I tore out the last blank pages, and I started writing. Date, time, what I had heard, word for word. Because if life had taught me anything, it was this. Predators attack those who appear weak. But I had survived my husband's death, poverty, and 30 years of struggling alone. I was not going to let a pretty girl destroy everything I had built. Victoria made a mistake. She thought I was an ignorant old woman, uneducated, without resources. She did not know that women like me are dangerous precisely because we have learned to survive in silence. I kept smiling. I kept calling her honey. I kept allowing her to direct the remodeling. But every cruel comment, every stolen object, every humiliation went into that notebook. And at night, while she slept peacefully in her Manhattan apartment, I planned. Because my son had unintentionally taught me something. Sometimes the best blow is the one no one sees coming. And I was preparing mine. I just needed the perfect moment. And that moment would come 3 months later, in an elegant garden in front of 60 guests on Robert's 38th birthday. The day my daughter-in-law would send me to sit next to the trash cans. The day her perfect smile would turn into a scream of panic. But before getting to that moment, I had to endure something worse than the loss of objects. I had to endure the loss of my dignity in front of strangers. The remodeling finished in May. My house looked unrecognizable. Immaculate white walls, straight-lined furniture without history. Everything impeccable, everything cold, everything foreign. Victoria organized an inauguration party without asking me. "Mother-in-law, I am going to bring my friends over so they can see how it turned out. It will be something intimate, just a few glasses of wine. Is Saturday okay with you?" It was not a question. It was a notification. That Saturday, 5 women arrived, all around Victoria's age, all dressed as if they were going to a fashion show. Heels, designer bags, perfumes that competed with each other to fill the space. I was in the kitchen preparing appetizers. I had made cheese turnovers, my specialty. I thought I could at least contribute something in my own house. Victoria entered the kitchen with one of her friends. "Oh, mother-in-law, you should not have bothered. We ordered canapés from a gourmet boutique, but your turnovers look rustic. I am sure the girls will be curious to try some home-cooked food." Home-cooked food, as if it were something quaint, something folkloric. Her friend looked at me with that smile I already knew, the smile of someone observing something curious but inferior. "You are Robert's mother? Victoria has told us so much about you." "It is a pleasure," I replied, wiping my hands on my apron. "You must be so proud of your son. Victoria says you made a great sacrifice to educate him. You sold preserves, right? How admirable to work with your hands." Work with your hands, as if it were something quaint, as if my burned, rough hands were a funny anecdote to tell at their elegant dinners. In the living room, the other women walked through my house, commenting loudly. "Look at the transformation. Before, this looked like a country house, did it not, Beth?" "Totally. My mother-in-law has very traditional tastes, but we managed to modernize it without losing its humble essence." Laughter. Glasses clinking. I left the kitchen with the tray of turnovers. Victoria intercepted me in the hallway. "Mother-in-law, why do not you stay in the kitchen? We are talking about work things. Digital marketing, brand strategies. We do not want to bore you with topics you will not understand." I stayed in the kitchen, like the maid in my own house. From there, I heard their voices, their laughter, their comments. "Well, Robert is a sweetheart, but the in-laws are a whole issue. I totally get you. Mine is from the sticks, too. The important thing is that he has ambition, that he wants to grow, not get stuck in that poverty mindset." I squeezed the edge of the sink until my knuckles turned white. I took a deep breath, smiled, and kept washing dishes. But in my floral notebook, that night, I wrote down every word, every humiliation, every laugh. The visits became frequent. Victoria used my house as a meeting center. I became the decorative figure, the quaint mother-in-law they could display when they wanted to feel generous. "Look, this is Stella, my husband's mom. She is the one who makes those artisanal preserves. You should try them. They are very authentic." Authentic. That word became her favorite, as if I were a folkloric artifact. One day, Victoria brought a reporter from a society magazine. They were doing an article about businesswomen who support their communities. "I want you to meet my mother-in-law," Victoria told the reporter. "It is an inspiring story. A woman without formal education who managed to raise her son by selling preserves." The reporter interviewed me while Victoria posed in the background, as if she were the protagonist of my story. "How many years did you study, Mrs. Stella?" "I finished high school." "How brave to keep going without higher education. And how did you learn to make preserves?" "My grandmother taught me." "Lovely. Family traditions." "And you never thought about professionalizing, studying culinary arts, for example?" Before I could answer, Victoria interrupted. "Well, at her age, and coming from where she comes from, formal education was not a priority. But look how far she came just with her hands. The resilience of humble people is admirable." Humble people, as if it were a different category of human being. The article came out 2 weeks later, a small column in the inspiration section. My photo appeared blurry in the background. In the foreground, Victoria smiling, with a caption that read, "Victoria Delgado Ortega, businesswoman and philanthropist, next to her mother-in-law Stella, an example of perseverance." Robert shared it on his social media, proud of these 2 strong women in my life. I did not say anything, but I kept the clipping, not out of pride, but as evidence. Family dinners became my worst nightmare. Victoria insisted that I cook. "It is just that no one makes roast turkey like you, mother-in-law. My parents are dying to try it." I spent 2 days preparing. I bought the ingredients with my own money. I cooked from dawn. The dinner was at my house, but I did not sit at the main table. "Mother-in-law, are you not serving?" "Well, with so many people, it is more practical for you to be near the kitchen." I served. I reheated. I brought more rolls. I cleared plates. While the Delgados ate my food, they talked about their vacations in Europe, their investments, the private schools where their future grandchildren would study. Robert laughed with them. My son, who had grown up eating reheated beans for 3 days straight, now joked about French wines that cost more than my monthly rent. One night, Victoria's father called me to the table. "Stella, I have to congratulate you. This turkey is exquisite. Robert told us that you sell preserves. Have you thought about expanding? I have contacts at supermarkets." Of course, you would have to make some changes. More professional packaging, brand image, maybe a less artisanal logo. Less artisanal. Another elegant way of saying less poor. "Thank you, Mr. Delgado, but my business is doing well as it is." "Oh, sure. The comfort of the local market, I understand. Not everyone has the ambition to grow." Victoria smiled from her chair, a victory smile. That night, after everyone left, I found the kitchen destroyed. Dirty dishes piled up, food spilled on the stove, crumpled napkins on the floor. I cleaned until 2 in the morning, and in my notebook, with a trembling hand, I wrote, "I no longer recognize my son. The woman he loves is turning him into someone who despises where he comes from, and I am letting it happen." But the worst had not yet arrived, because Victoria did not just want to humiliate me in private. She wanted to exhibit me, turn me into her charity project, into her story of "I helped the poor mother-in-law." And the perfect setting for her last humiliation would be my son's birthday. A party with 60 guests where she would look like the perfect wife, the generous daughter-in-law, the woman who modernized her husband's family. And I would be the decorative figure, the quaint mother-in-law, the woman who was once important but was now superfluous, except that this time I was carrying something in my hands, a gift wrapped in terracotta paper, and inside that gift was something Victoria never saw coming, something that would change everything. Let us go back to that Saturday, Robert's 38th birthday. I had planned this moment for 3 months, every detail, every word I would not say, every silence that would speak for me. I woke up at 5 in the morning, not out of nerves, out of habit. 30 years of getting up before dawn do not easily fade. I prepared my instant coffee. I sat in my modern, cold kitchen that no longer smelled of cinnamon or memories, and I checked the contents of my gift one last time. An artisanal envelope. I had made it myself with terracotta-colored craft paper. I had glued every edge carefully, decorated it with a jute ribbon, nothing fancy, but made with intention. Inside were 3 documents. The first one, the original deeds to my house, the house where Robert had grown up, the house Victoria had modernized, the house she planned to sell when they put me in a retirement home. 2 years ago, when Robert turned 36, I had gone to a notary. I had been thinking about it for months. He was my only son, my heir. Everything I had would one day be his, so I put the house in his name. But I was not naive. I included a clause that the notary helped me draft. Life estate. I could live in that house until my death. No one could sell it, rent it, or modify it without my consent while I was alive. The house was Robert's on paper, but in reality, it was still mine. I never told him. I kept the deeds in a safe deposit box, waiting for the right moment. The second document was a bank statement. My preserves business had grown more than anyone imagined. While Victoria introduced me as the mother-in-law who sells jam, I had secured a distribution contract with a regional supermarket chain. My products were now sold in 200 locations, Stella's Preserves. That was the trade name. With a logo, barcode, health registration, everything legal and professional. In my bank account, there was $1,840,000. And I had a contract signed for 3 more years. Projected income, $4 million. Victoria had mocked my little country business while I built a silent empire. The third document was the distribution contract, with official letterhead, with my full name as the sole owner of the company. I put the 3 papers into the terracotta envelope. I sealed it. I tied it with the ribbon, and I dressed for the party. I did not put on anything fancy. A simple bone-colored cotton dress, my comfortable shoes, no makeup, no jewelry. I wanted to look exactly as Victoria expected. A simple old woman who did not understand fashion or appearances. I arrived at the garden at 6 o'clock in the evening. The party started at 7, but I knew Victoria would be there early, supervising every detail. And there she was, dressed in an ivory-colored pantsuit that must have cost $20,000, hair pulled back in a perfect bun, white gold earrings, 4-inch heels. She saw me arrive and her smile tightened for just a second. Then she composed herself. "Mother-in-law, so glad you arrived early. That way you can help me supervise the servers placing the tables correctly." I did not answer. I just nodded. I spent the next hour watching them transform the garden into a magazine set. White flowers in every corner, hanging lights, tables with linen tablecloths, crystal glasses, silverware, $95,000 on catering. I knew because I heard Victoria talking to the coordinator. $95,000 to celebrate my son. While I had raised him on beans and rice, the guests started arriving. People I did not know, Robert's colleagues, Victoria's friends, the entire Delgado family. Robert greeted me with a quick kiss on the cheek. "Mom, thanks for coming. You look good?" Not, "I missed you." Not, "How good to see you." Just, "Thanks for coming," as if I were a courtesy guest. "Happy birthday, son." I handed him my gift, the terracotta envelope. He looked at it with that expression I already knew, a mixture of condescending tenderness and embarrassment. "Oh, Mom, you should not have. Leave it over there and I will open it later. It is important, Robert. Open it now. Mom, I have to greet the guests. Later? Yes. He took it from my hands without really looking at it. He left it on a side table next to other gifts, boxes wrapped in shiny paper with huge bows. My artisanal envelope looked small, humble, out of place, just like me. Victoria approached. Her perfume arrived before she did. Mother-in-law, dinner is about to start. Come, I will show you where you are going to sit. I walked behind her. We passed the main table where Robert's seat of honor was. We passed the tables decorated with flower centerpieces. We passed the orchestra area. We kept walking toward the back of the garden, and then she stopped, next to a service door, next to a tarp covering the trash cans. Here. There was a folding chair, alone, without a table, without a tablecloth. I thought you would be more comfortable away from the main table, she said, looking me directly in the eyes, no longer smiling, without masks. You know, with all those important people, we do not want you to feel out of place. The entire garden seemed to have stopped. Some nearby guests turned around. I saw their expressions: surprise, discomfort, pity. But no one said anything. Not even Robert, who was less than 30 feet away, laughing with his friends. I looked at Victoria. I looked at the chair next to the garbage. I looked at my son, who had his back to me. And at that moment, something inside me finally broke. Not with pain, with clarity. The clarity of someone who finally understands that she has been fighting for something that no longer exists. I walked back toward the table where Robert had left my gift. I picked it up, and I walked toward the exit without saying a word. I heard murmurs. Is that not Robert's mother? What happened? Is she leaving? I kept walking. My car was 50 yards away, the keys in my purse, 40 yards, 30. And then I heard the scream, high-pitched, terrified, full of panic. Robert! Robert! Get over here now! It was Victoria. I stopped. I did not turn around, but I stopped. Stella! Mrs. Stella, wait! Now she was using my name, not mother-in-law, my full name. I heard running steps behind me, confused voices, the murmur of 60 guests, wondering what was happening. A hand touched my shoulder. Robert, pale, confused. Mom, what is going on? Victoria is... She found... What is this? In his hand, the terracotta envelope was trembling, open, the 3 documents visible. Behind him, Victoria was running in her impossible heels. Her cheeks were red. Her eyes were wide. Why did you not tell me? She yelled. Why did you never say anything? I turned around slowly. I looked at both of them. At my son, who was just beginning to understand. At my daughter-in-law, who had finally lost control. And I smiled. For the first time in 4 years, I truly smiled. 60 pairs of eyes were looking at us. The orchestra had stopped playing. The servers had stopped with the trays held high. The entire garden had become a frozen stage, and I was in the center. Mom, Robert repeated with a shaky voice, what is all this? I looked at the papers in his hands, the house deeds, the bank statement, the distribution contract. It is your birthday gift, son. I thought it was time for you to know the truth. Victoria pushed her way past Robert. Her mascara was running. Her hands were shaking. This cannot be real. It is fake. It has to be fake. It is completely real, I said with a calm I did not know I possessed. You can verify every document with the Notary Public Number 23 of New York City, or with Federal Bank, Queens Branch, or with Regional Grocers, my authorized distributor. Robert was reading the papers as if they were in another language. His lips were moving without making a sound. Victoria's mother approached, that cold woman who had looked at me with contempt at the wedding. Let me see that. She snatched the papers from Robert's hands. Her eyes scanned every line, every number. This says $1,800,000. I completed. That is right. My preserves business, as you call it, generates that and more every year. Victoria's father approached as well. He took the distribution contract. He read it. He turned to look at me. You are the owner of Stella's Preserves, the sole owner, founder, administrator, everything. "But in the magazine," Victoria stammered. "In the article you said you only sold at markets." "I never said that. You said it for me. I just smiled and let you think whatever you wanted." The guests started approaching, forming a circle. A woman I recognized as a marketing manager from some company covered her mouth with her hand. "Wait, Stella's Preserves? The gourmet jam one that is at regional grocers? Are you that Stella?" "That is right." "But those preserves they are premium. They are in the gourmet section. They cost between $120 and $200 a jar." $180 on average, I corrected, with a profit margin of 60% after production and distribution costs. A thick silence fell over the garden. Robert finally spoke. His voice sounded broken. "Why did you never tell me you had grown so much?" I looked at him, at my son, the boy I had carried in my arms, the young man who had promised to always take care of me. "Why did you stop asking, Robert? It has been 4 years since you asked me how my business is. You just assumed I was still the same market vendor you knew in your childhood. But I thought you thought what your wife told you to think." Victoria took a step back as if I had slapped her. "That is not fair. I just what?" My voice rose in volume. I did not yell, but there was steel in every word. "Did you just renovate my house without my permission? Did you just throw away my grandmother's shawl? Did you just send me to sit next to the garbage at your son's birthday?" The murmurs exploded. Some guests looked at each other horrified. An older woman, probably someone's aunt, shook her head indignantly. "You did what?" Victoria's mother asked, looking at her daughter. "Mom, I did not. It was a misunderstanding." "It was not a misunderstanding," I interrupted her. "It was deliberate. Calculated. For 4 years you have treated me as if I were your charity project, the poor mother-in-law who needed your help, the ignorant woman who did not understand business or life." I took the floral notebook from my purse. It was worn at the corners, full of notes. "I have recorded every comment, every humiliation, every time you called me humble people in front of your friends, every time you said my house looked country, every object you made disappear for my own good." I opened the notebook to a random page and read aloud. June 8th, Victoria brought 3 friends over. She introduced me as the mother-in-law who never studied but has handy hands. Textual comment. "It is admirable how uneducated people find ways to survive." I turned the page. July 22nd, family dinner. I served for 2 hours. No one invited me to sit down. Mr. Delgado said, "Not everyone has the ambition to grow." He was referring to me. Another page. September 3rd, Victoria told her mother on the phone, textual quote, "In 2 years we will convince her to move to a retirement home. The house will eventually be ours." The garden erupted in scandalized whispers. Victoria's mother turned pale. "You said that?" "Mom, it was taken out of context." "I have recordings." I dropped the final bomb. All heads turned toward me. Since I heard that conversation, I started recording. I have 3 months of audio, conversations where they plan to sell my house, where they discuss how to get rid of me, where they mock my manners, my way of speaking, my clothes. I took out my cell phone. An old model, one of those Victoria had looked at with pity, but it worked perfectly for recording. "Do you want to hear it?" "No," Victoria whispered. Tears started running down her cheeks, washing away the perfect makeup. "Please." "No." "Please?" I repeated. "Now you say please? Where was your please when you sent me to sit next to the garbage?" Robert sank into a chair. His head was in his hands. "My God, Mom, I did not know. I did not know any of this." "You knew," I said softly. "Maybe not the details, but you knew. You were there every time she humiliated me, every time she made me feel small, and you chose not to see it because it was more comfortable. I thought you guys got along well. You thought what you wanted to think, just like you thought I was a poor old woman who needed your pity." I held up the house deeds. "This house that your wife criticized so much, that she remodeled without my permission, that they plan to sell, is already yours, Robert. I signed it over to you 2 years ago. It is legally in your name." His head shot up. "What?" I wanted you to have security. I wanted you to know that everything I built was for you, but I included a clause. Life estate. I live there until I die. No one can sell it, rent it, or modify it without my consent. Not even you." Victoria made a strange sound. Something between a sob and a choked scream. "Why?" she asked, her voice broken. "Why did you do this? Why did I unmask you?" I looked at her intently. Because there came a point where sitting next to the garbage stopped being a humiliation and became a perfect metaphor. You put me there thinking that was my place. But the garbage was not me, Victoria. It was the way you treated me. I turned toward the guests who were looking at us in sepulchral silence. I apologize for ruining this celebration, but I can no longer keep pretending that everything is fine. I can no longer keep smiling while I am treated as if I were invisible. I started walking toward my car again. This time, no one stopped me. But before leaving the garden, I stopped. I turned around one last time. "Happy birthday, Robert. Enjoy your party." And I left. I left behind the elegant garden, the imported flowers, the confused servers, the 60 scandalized, murmuring guests. I left my son with his head in his hands, and I left Victoria crying, her perfection shattered and her true face finally exposed. But this story does not end there, because what came next was even more revealing. I arrived at my house at 9 o'clock in the evening, my modern and cold house that still did not feel like home. I took off my shoes, I poured myself a glass of water, and I sat on the minimalist sofa that had replaced the furniture where James and I used to sit every night. I did not cry. I had no more tears left for this. I simply waited. I knew he would come. It was inevitable. The doorbell rang at 11:15. I opened the door, and there was Robert, alone, without Victoria, with red eyes and a loosened tie. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 4 hours. "Mom." I stepped aside. He walked in without looking at me. He collapsed onto the sofa and covered his face with his hands. The guests left. All of them. In less than an hour, the garden was empty. Victoria's parents left without saying goodbye. Her friends deleted the photos from social media. It was humiliating. "Humiliating?" I repeated softly. "Do you know what is humiliating, son? Having your own daughter-in-law send you to sit next to the trash. That is humiliating." He flinched as if I had hit him. "I did not know she did that. I swear I did not see it. You were 30 feet away, laughing with your friends while I was carrying my shattered dignity. Mom, please." "Please what, Robert?" I sat across from him. "Do you want me to tell you that it is okay? That nothing happened? I want to understand. Why did you never tell me your business had grown so much? Why did you keep the house a secret? If you had told me." "What would you have done differently?" I interrupted him. "Would you have defended your mother when Victoria called her humble people? Would you have stopped the remodeling that destroyed every memory of your childhood? Would you have questioned why I was serving at dinners while you behaved like the owners?" He closed his eyes. A tear ran down his cheek. "I did not want to see it. It was easier to think that we were helping you, that Victoria was improving your life." "Victoria did not want to improve my life. She wanted to erase me from yours." He remained silent for a long time. Outside, the sound of passing cars, the city that never sleeps, the life that continued even though my world had fractured. "After you left," he finally said in a hoarse voice, "Victoria broke down, literally. She sat on the garden floor and started crying. She could not stop. Her mother had to practically carry her to the car. And what did you do?" I stood there, surrounded by tables with food no one ate, gifts no one gave, and I realized something terrible. He looked up. His eyes were those of a lost child. "I do not recognize you, Mom, but I do not recognize myself either." "What do you mean?" "The woman who walked out of that garden with her head held high, that is my mother. The strong woman who raised me alone. The warrior who worked 18 hours a day to give me a better life. But me, I became someone who allows his own mother to be treated like that." He broke, completely. He sobbed with his head in his hands, his body shaking. "Dad would be ashamed of me." Those words pierced my chest like a knife. I got up, I sat next to him, and for the first time in 4 years, I hugged him like when he was a child. Your father loved you, Robert, and he would be proud of the man you are working to be. But yes, he would be disappointed in the man you allowed yourself to become. How did we get here? He whispered against my shoulder. How did I allow this to happen? Because you fell in love with a woman who made you feel like you came from a place you should be ashamed of. And little by little, you started to believe her. He pulled away from me. He wiped his tears with the back of his hand. I need to show you something. He took out his phone. He opened a WhatsApp conversation. It was a family group I did not know about. Delgado Ortega family, the name read. Victoria added me to this group 2 years ago. It is her family, her cousins, aunts, her mother. Look what they were writing. He started reading messages, each one worse than the last. Cousin Lucy, I saw your mother-in-law at the market selling her little jars. What a shame Robert has that family. Aunt Betty, have you convinced the boy to put the lady in a retirement home yet? My friend knows a cheap one in Brooklyn. Cousin Audrey, Victoria, you have the patience of a saint. I would not put up with such a common mother-in-law. My blood ran cold. And you knew about these messages? No, I never checked that group. Only today, after the party, did I look. There are hundreds of messages like this. Years of mockery, of planning, of... His voice broke again. Of horrible things, Mom. Did Victoria participate? She initiated them. Most of them come from her. He took a deep breath. There is more. I found emails on the computer we share. Victoria contacted a lawyer 6 months ago. She asked about procedures to declare someone senile, to obtain legal guardianship, to... He could not finish. To lock me away, I completed. To declare me incompetent and take control of my assets. He nodded without being able to look me in the eyes. There are document drafts, fake psychiatric evaluations she planned to use, contacts for retirement homes, budgets, everything planned. The silence that followed was overwhelming. What are you going to do? I finally asked. I do not know. She is my wife. I married her before God. God did not ask you to betray your mother, Robert. I know, but for 4 years I built a life with her. We have plans. We talked about having children, about buying a house in Manhattan, about selling your mother's house to finance those dreams. He flinched. She said it was the best for everyone, that you would be better off in a place where they would take care of you, that the house was worth a lot, and we could invest that money, that you no longer had the energy to live alone. And you believed her? I wanted to believe her, because the alternative was accepting that I married someone capable of this. I got up. I walked toward the kitchen. I needed to move. I needed to process that my son had been on the verge of signing my banishment. Mom, he followed me. What else was in that envelope besides the documents? You said you had recordings. What do they talk about? What else did they say? I looked at him for a long time, trying to decide how much truth he could handle, how much more he needed to hear before he made a decision. There is one conversation in particular, I said slowly. From last month. Victoria was talking to her mother. They were in the living room. I arrived early and heard them before they noticed my presence. What did they say? Victoria was asking her mother how long it was prudent to wait after putting someone in a retirement home before selling their property. His color left Robert's face. No, that cannot be. Then Victoria said, and I quote this exactly because I have listened to it 20 times, the good thing is that Robert is so busy with work that he will not even notice when she disappears. And if he asks, we will tell him she is happy in her new home, with people on her level. Robert sank against the wall. His legs would no longer support him. People on her level, he repeated in horror. They talked about you as if you were garbage that needed to be taken out. Yes. He covered his mouth with his hand. For a moment I thought he would vomit. I have that recording saved in 3 different places, I continued, and I am not the only one who has heard it. My lawyer has a copy, my accountant has a copy, and my bank manager has specific instructions. If anything happens to me, if I end up hospitalized somewhere against my will, if I mysteriously disappear, Those recordings go straight to the district attorney. District attorney? What Victoria was planning is a crime, Robert. Fraud, forced displacement of a vulnerable person, misappropriation. A lawyer explained everything to me. If I had signed those papers she was preparing, if I had been declared senile, I would have been the victim of a crime. My son slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. He looked like a broken doll. 4 years, he murmured. 4 years married to a stranger. I sat on the floor next to him, like when he was a child and fell while playing, when the world seemed too big and scary. The question now is, what are you going to do with that information? He looked up at me, and in his eyes I saw the 7-year-old boy who had lost his father, scared, lost, looking for his mother to tell him what to do. But he was no longer a child. He was a man, and this decision had to be his alone. Robert stayed at my house that night. He slept on the sofa, like when he was a teenager and had nightmares. Except now the nightmare was real and had a woman's name. I did not sleep. I stayed in my room looking at the ceiling, listening to his uneven breathing from the living room, wondering if I had done the right thing, if exposing everything like that in front of 60 people had been justice or revenge. But then I remembered the chair next to the trash cans, and the doubt vanished. At 6 a.m, I heard movement. I got up and found him in the kitchen making coffee. He was using the old coffee maker that I had rescued before Victoria threw it away. "Good morning," I said softly. "I did not sleep at all," he replied without turning around. "I could not stop thinking." "And what conclusion did you reach?" He poured 2 cups. He handed me one. The coffee smelled like home, like mornings from before, like when it was just the 2 of us against the world. "I am getting a divorce." The words hung in the air of the kitchen. "Are you sure?" "Completely. I cannot stay married to someone capable of planning that, of treating you like that, of lying to me for years." He took a sip of coffee. His hands were shaking. "But there is something else I need to do first." "What?" "Confront her, but not alone. I need you to be there, Mom. I need her to see you, to understand that she can no longer manipulate me." "Robert, you do not have to." "Yes, I have to. For you, for Dad, for the man I am supposed to be." 3 hours later, we were in front of the Manhattan apartment Robert shared with Victoria, a modern 20-story building with a marble lobby and a uniformed doorman. Robert opened the door with his key. We went in together. Victoria was in the living room. She was still wearing silk pajamas. She had not put on makeup. She had deep, dark circles under her eyes and messy hair. When she saw us come in, she jumped to her feet. "Robert, thank God. I thought, we need to talk. What happened yesterday was a horrible misunderstanding. I never meant to—" "Sit down," Robert interrupted. His voice was different, cold, authoritative. Victoria obeyed. Her eyes darted between the 2 of us, calculating, looking for a way out. "My mother is staying standing," Robert continued. "In fact, she is going to take the main chair, the one you always use." He pointed to the gray velvet armchair that dominated the room. Victoria's spot, as they called it, where she sat drinking wine with her friends while planning their perfect lives. I sat down. Victoria turned pale. Robert stood between the 2 of us, like a judge. "I am only going to do this once," he began. "I am going to give you the opportunity to tell the truth, the whole truth. No lies, no excuses, no manipulative tears. Robert, were you planning to put my mother in a retirement home?" Silence. Answer. I was exploring options for when she was older. For her own good. You declared her senile to a lawyer without her knowing. I did not get to. They were only consultations. Did you contact retirement homes to budget for her internment? Tears started rolling down Victoria's cheeks, but this time they were not of sadness. They were of panic. "Robert, please, you have to understand the context. Did you tell your mother that I would not even notice when my own mother disappeared?" Victoria let out a sob. I was angry. I said things I did not mean. "For 4 years?" Robert's voice rose. "Were you angry for 4 whole years, every time you called her mother-in-law? Every time you destroyed her memories, every time you humiliated her in front of your friends. I only wanted the best for us, Victoria shouted, standing up. That house is worth millions. We could sell it, invest, have a better life. Do not you understand how hard it is for me to have a mother-in-law who sells jars at markets? My friends mock me. My family asks me why I allow her to live in such humble conditions. I was just trying to improve the situation. By sending her to sit next to the garbage? Victoria was speechless. That was not... It was an impulse. I was stressed with the party. And throwing away her grandmother's shawl? Was that also an impulse? It was an old rag. And making my father's pictures and my grandfather's watch disappear? We needed space. And convincing your family that my mother was an embarrassment? Victoria started crying uncontrollably. She collapsed onto the sofa. I did not want it to be like this. At first, I loved you. I truly loved you. But then my family started making comments about your origins, about your mother, and I felt like I had to choose between you and my family. And you chose, I said for the first time. They both turned to look at me. You chose to believe that we were inferior, that we embarrassed your last name, that we had to be erased or hidden. It is not that. It is exactly that, Victoria. And the saddest thing is that you convinced my son that he should be ashamed too. Robert took some papers from his backpack. He put them on the coffee table. These are divorce papers. I filled them out last night. They just need your signature. Victoria looked at him, horrified. What? No, Robert, no. We can go to therapy. We can fix this. I love you. We are a team. A team does not plan to destroy the other's mother. But I was not actually going to do it. They were just ideas, thoughts. I would never have done it. The lawyer you consulted says differently. The emails you sent say differently. The conversations with your mother say differently. He took a deep breath. You have two options. You sign these papers today, and this ends quietly. We do the separation of assets, everyone takes theirs, and we move on with our lives. Or you force me to do this legally, and then I present all the recordings, all the emails, all the evidence of what you were planning to do, and that becomes public, very public. You are threatening me, Victoria whispered. I am giving you a dignified exit, more than you gave my mother. Victoria looked at me. There was pure hatred in her eyes. Nothing of the varnish of kindness remained. This is your fault, she spat at me. If you had stayed in your place, if you had accepted that you do not belong in our world, none of this would have happened. My place, I repeated slowly. It was never next to the trash cans, Victoria. My place is next to my son, and if he decides he no longer wants me there, it will be his decision, not yours. I got up from the armchair. I walked toward the door. I will leave you to talk. Robert, I will be in the car. I went down to the parking lot. I sat in my old Ford sedan that Victoria had always criticized for being so humble, and I waited. 45 minutes later, Robert came out of the building. He was carrying a large suitcase, and in his hand, the signed divorce papers. He got into the car, he closed the door, and he looked straight ahead in silence. Did she sign? I asked. She signed, with one condition. Which one? That you would not make the recordings public, that this would not reach her social media or her work. She is afraid of losing her job, her reputation. And what did you say? That it depended on you, that I do not control what you do with your evidence. I looked at him, my son, who was finally on the right side. I am not going to post anything, I said. I do not need to destroy her publicly. She already destroyed herself in front of 60 witnesses. That is enough. Robert nodded. A tear ran down his cheek. Can I stay with you for a while, just until I find a place? You can stay as long as you need. It is your house, Robert. It always was. It always will be. He started the car. He drove in silence for 20 minutes. Then he spoke in a broken voice. Dad would have known what to do. He always knew how to protect you. Your father taught you to work hard, to be honest, to fight for what you love. The rest you learned alone, and today you learned the most important lesson, that true love never asks you to betray the one who gave you life. He drove to the house, our house, where he had grown up, where I had cried, where together we had survived, And as we went up the stairs with his suitcase, I knew that this was not an end. It was a new beginning, but the story did not end there. Because Victoria had one last ace up her sleeve, and when she played it, it almost destroyed everything we had rebuilt. 2 weeks after Robert moved back home, things started to normalize. He slept in his old room. I made him coffee every morning. We talked, we laughed, we cried, we healed. But I knew the peace would not last. I knew women like Victoria. They do not accept defeat. They do not leave in silence. The blow came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at my shop supervising a new batch of spiced apple butter when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Mrs. Stella Ramirez? Yes, speaking. This is Attorney Mendez from Duran and Associates. I represent Mrs. Victoria Delgado. I have in my hands a lawsuit against you for defamation, emotional distress, and harassment. The world stopped. Excuse me? My client alleges that you publicly exposed her with false information, causing irreparable damage to her personal and professional reputation. She is suing for compensation of $1,200,000 in addition to a public apology. I sat in the nearest chair. Nothing I said was false. I have proof of everything. That will be determined by a judge, ma'am. You have 10 days to formally respond through your lawyer. Good day. He hung up. I was left staring at the phone with trembling hands. Victoria was suing me. After everything she had done, she was suing me. I called Robert immediately. I already know, Mom. Her lawyer called me an hour ago. He wants me to testify in her favor. He says I was a victim of psychological manipulation and that you poisoned our relationship. What did you tell him? To go to hell. That night, sitting at the kitchen table with all the documents spread out, we assessed the situation. She is desperate, Robert said. She lost her marriage. She probably lost the respect of her family, and now she is attacking because it is the only thing she has left. But can she win? I do not know, Mom. The law is complicated. If a judge decides that publicly exposing her was excessive, she will take everything I built to defend herself. Fear settled in my stomach like a cold stone. I hired a lawyer, a woman named Attorney Torres, specializing in family law. I showed her everything. The recordings, the notebook, the emails Robert had found, the conversations from the Delgado family group. Attorney Torres listened to every audio, read every note, and when she finished, she smiled. Mrs. Stella, we are not just going to win, we are going to counterattack. What do you mean? What Victoria was planning to do constitutes several crimes: anticipatory fraud, conspiracy to commit forced displacement, attempted misappropriation. We can file a counterclaim, not just civil, but criminal. I do not want to put her in jail. It is not about putting her in jail. It is about proving that she is not the victim and making sure this ends definitively. The first hearing was 3 weeks later. In a small family courtroom downtown, Victoria arrived dressed in black, with dark glasses, accompanied by her lawyer and her mother. When she saw me, she looked away. Her lawyer presented the case. I had defamed his client. I had exposed private information. I had caused her to lose her marriage and her social reputation. They asked for $1,200,000 in damages. Then it was Attorney Torres's turn. Your Honor, Mrs. Delgado is not a victim of defamation. She is the perpetrator of a systematic plan of psychological abuse, anticipatory misappropriation, and forced displacement. I have irrefutable proof. She placed a thick folder on the judge's desk. Audio number 1. Mrs. Delgado discussing with her mother how to commit my client to a retirement home against her will. Audio number 2. Mrs. Delgado consulting with a lawyer about declaring my client senile without her knowledge. Emails where she discusses the sale of my client's property. Family group messages where they systematically mock my client and her social origin. The judge opened the folder. He started reading. His expression changed. Do you have the audios? All of them, Your Honor, and certified transcripts by an expert. Victoria's lawyer turned pale. Your Honor, those recordings were obtained without consent. In this state, Attorney Torres interrupted, a person can record conversations they are a part of without requiring consent from the other participants. My client was present during these conversations. They are legal and admissible. The judge listened to the recordings, in silence, with a frown. When he finished, he looked at Victoria. Mrs. Delgado, are you the one speaking in these recordings? Victoria stammered. Those conversations are taken out of context. Is that your voice? Yes or no? Yes, but... And is it true that you consulted with a lawyer about committing Mrs. Ramirez? I was just exploring options for the future. A future where Mrs. Ramirez would be declared senile without her knowledge? Silence. The judge closed the folder with a dry thud. This lawsuit is frivolous and malicious. Not only do I dismiss it, but I order Mrs. Delgado to pay the legal costs of the defense. Furthermore, I am sending a copy of this file to the district attorney's office to evaluate if criminal charges are warranted. The gavel fell. Victoria jumped to her feet. This is unfair. She humiliated me in front of... Mrs. Delgado, the judge interrupted her with a voice of steel. You humiliated this woman for 4 years. You took her memories. You planned to steal her home. And when you were exposed, you tried to play the victim. This court does not tolerate that kind of manipulation. Be gone. Victoria ran out of the room, her mother behind her, her lawyer hastily picking up papers. I remained seated, trembling. Is it over? I asked Attorney Torres. It is over. Robert, who had been sitting in the back of the room, came over and hugged me. It is over, Mom. It is finally over. But there was one last surprise. 2 days later, I received a text message from an unknown number. It was a photo. In it, Victoria was seen entering an office building. The text read, Mrs. Stella, I am Michelle, one of Victoria's friends who is at the birthday party. I need to talk to you, please. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop. She was a woman in her 30s, elegant, but with an embarrassed expression. I do not know how to start, she said as soon as we sat down. I was complicit in everything. I laughed when Victoria mocked you. I never defended you, and I hate myself for it. Why are you looking for me now? Because what I saw that day changed me. I saw a woman with more dignity in her silence than all of us with our degrees and last names put together. And I realized that I also have a mother-in-law whom I treat with condescension, whom I make feel less. Her eyes filled with tears. After the party, I talked to my mother-in-law. I apologized to her. For the first time, I really listened to her. And you know what I discovered? That she is an incredible woman, that she has fascinating stories, that I was wasting the opportunity to get to know her because I was too busy feeling superior. I am glad you learned something, I said sincerely. I did not just come to apologize. I came to tell you something important. Victoria is planning to leave the country. Her family is sending her to Europe. They are going to say it is for work, but in reality, it is to hide from the shame. Let her go. She is no longer my problem. But there is something else. Before she leaves, she is coming to your house, tomorrow night. I heard her tell another friend that she was going to recover something that belonged to her from the house. I do not know what it is, but it sounded threatening. I thanked Michelle, and that night, I prepared my own plan. The next day, at 7 in the evening, I set up my phone in the living room recording. Robert hid in the kitchen, and I waited. At 8:30, the doorbell rang. I opened it. There was Victoria. No makeup, gym clothes, a big bag on her shoulder. I came for Robert's things that he left here. Robert is here. You can ask him what he wants to take. I do not need to talk to him. Just give me his things and I will leave. No. Her expression changed. The veneer of cordiality disappeared. You stupid old woman. Do you think you won? Do you think you destroyed my life? I did not destroy anything, Victoria. You did it yourself. I had a perfect marriage, a perfect life, and you ruined everything because you could not stand your son being happy with someone from a better class. My son was not happy. He was a puppet. He loved me. He loved the idea of belonging to your world. There is a difference. Victoria pulled something out of her bag. A folded paper. Do you know what this is? It is the original deed to this house, the one that was in the bookcase before the remodeling. I saved it. And if you do not give me what I came for, I will destroy it. And without it, you cannot prove that Robert is the legal owner. I smiled, and from my pocket, I pulled out my phone. Do you know what this is, Victoria? It is a recording of the last 3 minutes where you just confessed that you stole legal documents from my house. That is called aggravated theft." Her face lost all color. "You are lying. You are not recording." Robert walked out of the kitchen. "Yes, she is recording, and so am I." Victoria backed away as if she had been slapped. "Give me back those deeds," Robert said, extending his hand. "Now." "Or what? You are not my husband anymore. You cannot force me." "No, but the police can, and they are one call away." Victoria looked at the deeds in her hand. Then she looked at us, and she finally understood that she had lost. She dropped the papers to the floor. She turned around, and before leaving she said, "I hope you are happy in your humble little house, the two of you together, as poor in spirit as always." "We are not poor, Victoria," I said softly. "We have something you never had, dignity that does not need to humiliate others to exist." The door closed behind her, and we never saw her again. 6 months later, my life had changed in ways I never imagined. Stella's Preserves kept growing. I opened a second shop. I hired 5 employees, all older women who needed work, women whom society had discarded because of their age. I taught them my recipes, my secrets, everything my grandmother had taught me, and every one of them called me Mrs. Stella. Not mother-in-law, not with condescension, with real respect. Robert got a new job at a smaller company, but with a better environment. He was still living with me. "Only until I find an apartment," he would say. But we both knew the truth. Neither of us wanted to separate yet. We had lost 4 years. We needed to recover the time. One afternoon, while we were preparing apple butter together in the kitchen, he had insisted on learning. He told me, "I met someone." My heart skipped a beat. "Yes, her name is Pamela. She is an elementary school teacher, simple, kind. And yesterday, when I told her our whole story, do you know what she said?" "What?" "That she wanted to meet you. That a woman who had built an empire from scratch while raising a son alone was someone she admired, not someone to be ashamed of." My eyes filled with tears. "And what did you tell her?" "That I would bring her for dinner on Sunday, and that she better be ready because my mom cooks like an angel but interrogates like a detective." We laughed together, as we had not laughed in years. On Sunday, Pamela arrived with flowers, not expensive roses, simple carnations from the market. She hugged me as if she had known me forever. "Mrs. Stella, it is an honor. Robert has told me so much." "Not everything," I joked. "Everything important. That you are a warrior, that you never gave up, that you taught your son the true meaning of family." We ate at the kitchen table. Not at an elegant restaurant, not with crystal glasses, with mismatched plates, iced tea in clay pitchers, and handmade biscuits. And for the first time in 4 years, I felt like my house was a home again. 3 months later, Robert and Pamela gave me news. "Mom, we are getting married. Nothing big, just something intimate, close family, and we want it to be here, in this house. In the garden where I played when I was a kid." I cried. I hugged my son. I hugged Pamela. "Are you sure?" I asked him that night after Pamela left. "After everything that happened, I am sure precisely because of everything that happened. I learned to recognize real love, and Pamela is real, Mom. She does not want to change me. She does not want me to be ashamed of you. She wants to build something true." The wedding was on a Saturday in May, 30 guests in our backyard. Marigolds, because Pamela said they were her grandmother's favorites. A live band, roast turkey, and mashed potatoes that the 3 of us prepared together. When the justice of the peace asked if anyone objected to the union, there was a moment of tense silence. Some guests looked at me, remembering what had happened at the previous marriage. I stood up. "I want to say something." Robert turned pale. Pamela looked at me with pleading eyes. "I want to say that this time, when I give my blessing to this marriage, I do so with a full heart, because Pamela did not come to erase us. She came to add to us, and that is what true love does. It adds, it does not subtract." The applause filled the garden. Robert hugged me, crying, "Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me, for waiting for me." Sons are not an investment, my love. They are an act of faith, and my faith in you never died. It just hid for a while. That night, when everyone had left and the house was quiet, I sat in the backyard, in the same place where Victoria had once sent me next to the trash cans. But now there were flowers there, and a bench that Robert had built with his own hands. I looked at the stars, and I spoke to James, as I sometimes did. We did it, my love. Our son found his way back. It was not easy. It was not fast. But he came back. The wind blew softly. The flowers swayed. And I knew he heard me. Because in the end, true wealth is not in what you possess, but in what you do not allow them to take from you. And I did not allow them to take my dignity. I did not allow them to take my worth. And above all, I did not allow them to take my son. There was a moment when I was sitting next to the garbage, but I got up, and by getting up, I taught everyone a lesson they will never forget. That a 67-year-old woman who has survived death, poverty, and betrayal is the most dangerous woman there is, because she has nothing left to lose and everything to prove. If this story touched your heart, if you have ever felt invisible, humiliated, or belittled by your own family, leave me your words in the comments. Tell me what part of the world you are joining us from. Sometimes, knowing that we are not alone in our pain is the first step toward healing. Like this if you believe that dignity is priceless. And subscribe to this channel, because we will continue sharing stories of women who got up when the world told them to stay down. Remember, true love never asks you to betray your essence, and the family that belittles you does not deserve the honor of your presence. Until the next story, God bless you.